Hi, everybody. Hopefully I see you there. If you can see me, if you're out there on Hangouts, go ahead and click in the chat and let me know that people are out there. Let me know that you can hear the audio. Hopefully you can hear me very well. Hopefully the audio is on. Okay, I see Adrienne, you can hear me pretty well?
Yep.
Okay. And Adrienne, you're not coming through. Do you see just me on video right now?
Yep, just you on video.
Okay, cool. I have a guest that I'll be bringing on in a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and get started, everybody. My name is Seth Perler, and I'm really glad you're here. And as you obviously know what you're here for, so let me go ahead and get started here. I'm pretty nervous. This stuff is new to me, so let's see if I can. That is not good. That's kind of cool, though. Screen share. How do I exit the screen share? Stop screen sharing. Okay, that's not the screen share I wanted. I have, okay, here we go. My entire screen, the application window for, there we go. Bear with me just a moment here, people, and I will get everything straightened out and we will rock and roll. Boom. Okay, so.
Perfect. I see it, just to let you know.
Good, good enough.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself too.
Cool. All right, so here is the PowerPoint I am going to be going over with you, and I'll be going back and forth from my face to this. First of all, my name is Seth Perler. I have a master's in gifted and talented education, bachelor's in education. My company is called Shine On Educational Solutions, and there's my website and my email. And you probably know about me already, but I'm an education coach, and I live in Santa Monica. And let's see. Today, I'm going to talk about the Back to School Jumpstart Program. So this is a program that I'm doing. I have so many people who I cannot work with. When I was leaving Boulder, I had a wait list of about 120 people, and I knew that there's a huge need for what I do. Kids don't get the systems that they need. They're not often taught them in school. So I started this Jumpstart. This is a 4-week webinar series I'll explain to you today. And my subtitle is Avoid a Rough Start and Create a Successful Semester. So bear with me while I get my bearings on the computer. The agenda today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the problem that these kids are facing and that you as parents are facing. I'm going to talk about 3 common mistakes that parents make at this time of the year. I'm going to talk about the Jumpstart, and then I'm going to bring Adrienne on because I have worked with her in the past online, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experience and how it's helping her even this year. I'm going to be, oh, you see all this subtitle stuff, don't you? Sorry, guys. If I play the PowerPoint, it doesn't look right. Anyhow, you're going to be drinking from the fire hose. I'm going to go rather quickly. If you have a question, please enter it in the chat. I will see the chat. So please go ahead and enter it if anything is confusing or you don't understand or you have questions.
Hey, Seth,
yeah.
If you hit the present button in the upper right-hand corner, it'll spread it out over the screen. Do you see the present button?
Oh, yeah, but the problem is that I can't then see myself.
All you have to do is hit escape.
Okay, now you see it on the whole screen?
I did a second ago, and then you hit escape.
It used to be like that, and I don't think it's like that anymore, unfortunately. So, yeah, so I'm just going to have to go with it. But I was messing with that earlier. Yeah, thank you. If you have questions, go ahead and chat me. First thing I want to talk about is the launch. Let's see if I can get back to me. Stop screen sharing. There we go. Hi, guys. So the first thing, parents, that I talk about, I always zoom out because you have to understand the point of education. There's no point in making any decisions about your child's education unless you're focused on what the heck we're doing in the first place. So I always start by telling people that education is about the launch. The purpose of education is to launch your child. You want your child to have 2 things. Parents tell me that they want their kids to be happy and successful. That's the #1 thing I ever hear from parents. How do you help your child grow up to be happy and successful while having them have a childhood that's happy and successful? because if you can launch them, what you want to do is launch them to have that happy and successful future, while a life of meaning and purpose, so that they can make their dent in the universe. So that's the purpose of education, is to launch your child. Now, the problem is, okay, maybe I'm going to just talk to you this way. The problem is that our kids struggle with this thing called executive function. And they have certain problems that can interfere with the launch. You do not want your child to have their launch interfered with. You want the launch to be a great launch. Unfortunately, the problems that they're having can interfere with that. What are these problems? They don't know how to study. They don't do their homework. They forget their homework. They forget to turn in their homework. They're not great with priorities. For example, they might prioritize technology over homework, or get down the rabbit hole of opening a bunch of tabs when they're supposed to be doing their homework, or texting, or video gaming. These kids are not great with details. They don't like 3-ring binders. They have trouble with organization. They hate planners. They love procrastinating. They're very creative with procrastinating. They often have an unrealistic perception of their ability to manage time. They think something will take them 5 minutes and it takes them 3 hours. They have an unrealistic perception of the effort that's necessary to finish a task, like homework, writing a paper, studying for a test. They just don't have a realistic perception of these things. They have they're very distractible. It's hard for them to focus. Their attention span might be short. They might struggle with something called working memory, so they might forget things very easily. These kids are often very resistant. They have trouble starting. They avoid. They're resistant to you helping them. They often dislike rules, but they often have a very heightened sense of justice, even though they don't like rules. They can be very sensitive emotionally, physically. They can be sensitive with their senses. They can often be stressed out. They can have a lot of anxiety. Some of them become depressed. And the last thing is often school does not see what their strengths are. So that's a big problem. So what I did here is I just did I'm looking at, so that you guys know, I'm looking at this screen for my notes, and I was going to show everybody this, but let's get on to this image. So this is a picture of the prefrontal cortex. So there's this thing called executive function, and executive function is where the problem lies. These kids struggle with executive function. The front part of their brain, the prefrontal cortex, is still developing. Fortunately for you parents, your child's prefrontal cortex will continue to develop until they're 25 or 30. So their ability to organize, to manage time, to prioritize, to focus, to pay attention, all of these things will get better through time. However, if you can help them learn systems and strategies for navigating school that utilizes their executive function in a way that is congruent with their learning style, for lack of a better word, then you're going to help them develop the brain power to have better executive function quicker. Consequently, if you don't do that and you use a lot of the interventions that schools will teach, or that tutoring places will teach, not that these things are bad, but they're often misaligned with the way your child processes. And Adrienne will, I'm sure, discuss this later, because the devil is in the details with these kids. You don't just teach them a traditional system. You need unconventional strategies. Now, I'm going to talk about the resistance a bit. There's this little part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is, if you were to go about 3 or 4 inches behind your eye, there are 2 of them. They're about the size of an almond. And the amygdala is where kids are resistant to your help, to starting homework. When their stress is coming up, they don't want to feel stressed out, so they just avoid. That's a function of the amygdala. Now, the amygdala gets a message from other parts of the brain that says, hey, we are being threatened. And it sends a message to the adrenal glands, which are, okay, let me stop the share real quick. Oops. Okay, I should be back on. So the amygdala sends the brain sends a message to the amygdala, holy crap, we're being threatened, something's wrong. Now that could just be you saying you need to clean your room. Oh, something's wrong. The amygdala gets a message that you're being threatened. It sends a message to the adrenal glands, which are on top of the kidneys. The adrenals send what? Adrenaline to the heart, which sends adrenaline to the muscular system, so that your child or you are ready for fight, flight, freeze, or faint. So your nervous system is trying to protect you, but you're having a response that is not appropriate. But your kids, and what's important in this conversation is that their resistance interferes with their ability to execute, which obviously can interfere with their ability to launch. So I'm just tying it all together for you guys. So now I'm going to get back to the screen share. I wish I could show you me and the screen share at the same time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the pattern, okay? So the pattern goes like this. Your child starts off the semester usually strong. The first couple weeks are pretty good. They're excited to be there and stuff like that. And I'm talking middle school and high school. All of a sudden, 6 to 8 weeks in, something happens. You either get a progress report, you check their online grades, you go to parent-teacher conferences. One of those events happens, and all of a sudden, you as the parent realize that suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, your child has 3 Fs, a D, and 2 As, some weird combination of grades. Okay. And you're just baffled. Your child's been telling you things have been going good. Well, your child tells you they've been staying up on their homework. Your child tells you they've been studying. However, you look online and it's not that way. You talk to them about this and they insist. I'm talking to my teacher tomorrow. I promise I'm taking care of it. Oh, I turned that in. The teacher just hasn't updated it. Yada, yada, yada. Same story as last year. Same story as the year before. Unfortunately, what happens is parents will buy into that. And they really want to trust their kids, and you guys argue about it and you go back and forth, and the pendulum swings. I'll talk about the pendulum in a bit. What ends up happening is that for the rest of the semester, your child is trying to dig themselves out of a hole. It is stressful for everybody. Sometimes it works and they pull it off at the last minute, and sometimes it doesn't, and then you repeat the same pattern in the spring, and then it comes summer break, and you're like, oh, thank goodness it's summer break again. And then you think you can recalibrate, and parents try to recalibrate. Everybody has a rest period, and you think it's going to be different the next year. Well, guess what? It often isn't. So what happens is that parents wait, and I'm telling you, don't wait, do it now. I don't care if you sign up for my program. I hope you do because I believe in it, and I think it's pretty awesome. But if you wait, regardless of if you get help from me or from somebody else, what will happen? Things will get derailed. 6 to 8 weeks in, they get derailed. Getting them back on track is really hard. As you saw in that image, it is very difficult, and they're swimming upstream, and it's just constant battles. Why are they having this struggle? Well, because they struggle with executive function. And they don't have the right tools to work with executive function effectively. Okay, now I'm going to talk about 3 mistakes that parents make, and I'm going to talk about some solutions and how this can help. What can help? Mistake number one is parents will get the wrong planner. Well, what's the solution to that? The solution is get the right planner and use it the right way. So, the 90% of the kids I work with, I recommend that they do not use the school planners. Why? The school planners have a bunch of visual, cluttery crap on them. And it's really cute, and it's really, they have little famous quotes and different colors for each month and all this stuff. Well, for most of my students, I don't want any of that visual stuff. These kids need simple, okay? These are global thinkers. These are not detail-oriented kids. So for them to have all this clutter, it interferes. Also, the planners from the schools are filled with things like the school handbook, the periodic table, commonly misspelled words, even their hall pass, things that interfere with the purpose of a planner, which is to learn to plan. So I want their planners to be bare bones. Also, these planners are weekly. These kids are global thinkers. Like I said, they need to see the big picture. So like I said, 90% of my kids I get on a different planner. I'll show you that in a minute, but about 10% do use them effectively. Look, parents, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If your child has a system that works, even if they're using note cards on a daily basis, but they are tracking it and getting their homework in and taking care of the responsibilities, I don't care. If they're using the weekly school planner effectively and they're able to manage their tasks, I don't care. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I will help them refine the systems that they do have. I don't agree, and I'll talk about this later when I talk about Franken's study. I don't agree that there's a one size fits all. However, 90% of my kids, I do get on a different type of planner. I want them to have a monthly planner. This one's from 2016, but I want them to look out for a monthly planner that says academic. You don't want the whole year. You don't want January to January. You want July to July. That's usually how the academic planners roll. I have them tear out everything in the planner that is not a planner. So unless they want the page in there for some reason, we rip out the note pages, we rip out the front page, we rip out any months that have gone by. And what I want is I want them to have their planner to be very visual, and I want it to have lines, especially if they don't have neat handwriting or they have big handwriting. I want it to have lines because in order to use this planner effectively, they have to use shorthand. So this is what I recommend. The only thing I don't like about this is the spiral. A lot of the kids I work with crush the spirals in their backpacks, which means that these don't open as well. And anything that might possibly interfere in any way, shape, or form with a kid not using a system, a kid who struggles with school, who not using a system, I want to eliminate that problem. So if I could change anything about this, I would hope that it would have staples instead of this, but that's not a huge problem. So I want a big planner, monthly, academic year with lines in it. And that is what I recommend and set up with them. Notes about the planner. So I have some notes here I'm going to read to you. 1, front load the planner. Put the entire calendar for the entire year in the planner if you can. Everything you possibly know about, including practice, including extracurriculars, including birthdays. Get it all in there. 2, teach them how to write shorthand. It has to be short and simple and to the point. 3, dog ear. I often will cut the corners off of any previous months and dog ear the planner so that it's easy for them to find the page. Anything that will help them to get there quicker is good. Next, visual. Like you saw with the highlighting, I want it to be visual. I want it to stand out to them. I want important things to stand out, and along with visual, color coding. So I do a lot of color coding in the planner with these kids. These kids need simple, straightforward, how do I plan? Give me a planner. These planners have 10 pages. Once you rip out all the pages, you have 10 months in a school year, 10 pages in the planner, or I think 11 technically. The other planners that they get from schools often have 80 or 90 pages in there. It's overwhelming. This is simple. It helps them learn what we're trying to do, which is learn to plan. Boom. Back to the PowerPoint, people. Hope you guys are having a great day, by the way. I feel much better now. I'm excited to be here and I'm in my groove. Front load your planner. Get ahead of the curve. That's the purpose of front loading. Mistake number 2. Shame based on misunderstanding. Parents will often shame their kids. You don't mean to shame your kids, but I will tell you the most common shameful messages. Teachers will often shame kids. Adults will often shame kids. It's just a part of our culture. Don't take it personally. Don't feel bad about it. Just listen to what I say, and if you agree with it, change it. I'll explain to you. Here are the shaming messages. You're lazy. You need to be more disciplined. You must not care about school. Why are you so unmotivated? You just don't try hard enough. All of these messages don't take into account what's going on with executive function, that they literally do not have the skills, systems, mindsets in order to utilize their executive function effectively to manage the extraordinary amount of details that schools expect kids to manage nowadays. Okay? So those messages can pierce very deeply. Kids can be very sensitive and they will turn you off. So don't make that mistake. All right. So what do you want to do about it instead? Well, I have a few things. Number 1 is, well, the main solution to this is emotional support in general. How are you going to support your child emotionally? Micro successes. Every single thing you notice that your kid does well, tell them. Don't make it BSE. Don't say, oh, that's so good. Like I do what I call throwaway comments. So I notice that a student does something and I say, oh, you just pulled out your stuff out of your backpack. Like if I'm coaching a student, I might say, oh, you just pulled your stuff out of your backpack. I didn't even have to tell you this time. That's cool. Like, and I call that a throwaway comment because I'm not looking at them to let it sink in. I'm just throwing it to them and letting it sink in a little bit. I sort of look away and do my thing for a moment, but I want them to get the feedback of what they're doing right. We are so insistent on finding what kids do wrong. So if you want to support your child emotionally, find what they were doing right. Every little success. You don't have to have a big conversation or see a lecture about what happens when you do it the right way. Let me expose that to you. A little throwaway comment is what you need. That is what is going to get you the most traction. 2, parents know every little win, every micro success counts. Sometimes a little tiny success that your kid does is actually going to go really far. So coming back to make sure that they hear you say something about it, do that. 3, barrage them with compliments, okay? But they have to be sincere, but really focus on barraging them with compliments. Here's how you do it. Do what I call the 3-to-1 rule. The 3-to-1 rule means that for any one perceived negative your child hears from you, hey, your room's a mess. They perceive that as a negative. Now, if you say, did you clean your room? They can perceive that as a negative. So look at how they're perceiving it. For any perceived negative that you tell your kid, and you have to tell them stuff, you have to communicate about the stuff, you want to give them 3 compliments in that day, 3 positives, 3 little throwaway comments that are going to help them. Hey, I noticed you started to clean your room on your own. Parents often will say, well, but they didn't finish cleaning in their room. I don't care, okay? You can worry about that, but in the moment you want to focus on, hey, I'm really glad you started. Like, focus on that success 3 times as much as you focus on what they perceive as the negatives. Trust me, you'll get a lot of traction with that. It is one of my biggest tools and one of the best ways that I, quote, motivate my kids. You want to, in order to help them emotionally, to emotionally support them, you want to co-regulate with them. Co-regulate means that you are regulating your own emotion. So let's say that you and your child are having a heated discussion and you're frustrated. You suddenly notice, oh, now I'm mad. You want to co-regulate, which means to look at your child and go like this. So you're not telling them to take a deep breath. You're not telling them to calm down. You're not telling them to stop being angry. You're showing them that you are taking an action to regulate yourself, like taking a deep breath. You can say what you just said. Oh, that breath helped me relax. And that's called co-regulating. As you're getting more emotionally regulated, they're going to mirror you. As you also get dysregulated, you're going to get your kid dysregulated, and they can get you dysregulated too. So co-regulation works both ways. But if you can consciously harness the power of co-regulation, you can help your kid emotionally so much. So if you stop using the shame things and start co-regulating and helping them deal with their stress and anxiety by showing them ways, just by modeling it, it's very, very, very powerful. Now, what if you are really dysregulated anyway? You're really stressed out adult, you're depressed, you're anxious yourself, or you're really trying to juggle so much and you're overwhelmed. How are you going to support them emotionally if you're always overwhelmed? Well, this is indirect, but do your own deep inner work. Find a great therapist. I love finding great therapists. I've been to plenty of them. They have helped my life so much. Don't have shame around that. They are there for a reason. They will help your life. Find a great psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever you need. But you can do journaling. You can do support groups. I don't care what it is, but do your own deep inner work. There are plenty of great books you can read to help you. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Moving on. Mistake number 3 is called pendulum theory. And I come up with a lot of little theories. And what happens with pendulum theory, and the solution of pendulum theory is taking a step back. I'll explain that in a minute. But what happens with pendulum theory with parents is parents will often go way far in one direction, and they will be enabling their kid or supporting their kids so much that they're not doing enough self-care for themselves. And what happens when you don't do enough self-care and you're taking too much care of everybody else, and you're trying to support them, giving them reminders, telling them every place they need to be, keeping on top of their grades, all this stuff, and meanwhile you're losing yourself. Well, the pendulum swings, and it swings so far and you hit a breaking point. The pendulum is going to swing the other way hard. And when it swings the other way, you're going to go all the way the other way. And here's what parents say when the pendulum swings. They say, fine, I give up. I'm not helping you at all. This semester, you're on your own. Well, that's great. I mean, sometimes that works. And sometimes you need to set that boundary for yourself. But a lot of times it is going too far. So the mistake parents make is they go way to each direction. And you need to get back to find where that balance is for yourself and your child. So how do you do that? How do you get the pendulum to not swing so far? Well, you take baby steps. Every little thing that you can do, every little thing counts, like I said before, with the micro successes. So you want to slow down, put the brakes on, stop and say, what am I doing here? Is this helping my kid or not? Am I enabling or not? How could I do it differently? Just take stock of what's going on. Part of what you want to do with pendulum theory is you want to be more clear about your boundaries proactively. Okay. So think about your boundaries, write out your boundaries if you want to, and then do what I call have a heart-to-heart. Have a heart-to-heart with your kid. Sit down with them, no phone, no computer, no TV. Sit down and say, I want to really talk about my boundaries. And get them in a time when they're regulated and when you're regulated, not when somebody's activated. Talk about boundaries. Get buy-in and ownership. So anytime you can, when it's gone really far, you want to get them to take buy-in and say, you know what, I don't like yelling at you. I'm sorry. And this is a complicated issue, so I can't talk too much about buy-in and ownership. But the more buy-in you have, the better. Adrienne, how's it going back there? Okay, great. And as far as a parent, when you're talking about pendulum theory, part of what you want to do is learn more about the words react versus respond. Oftentimes when the pendulum is going really far and you want it to swing the other way, that's because you're reacting. You're very emotional. Your buttons have been pushed. And slowing yourself down and doing better self-care is going to allow you to respond better, to not have your buttons pushed. Your child can take the same behavior that used to put your buttons, but now when they do that behavior, it doesn't push your buttons anymore, and you react more like, okay, that's not working for me. This has got to change. And instead of you're able to respond more consciously, more presently, without getting activated. And that is because your nervous system is not activated. So you've done some work on yourself or changing your beliefs about the situation so that your nervous system isn't activated. With the heart-to-hearts, one thing I do a lot, parents, this is one of my biggest tips, is wait time. You and your child are having a talk. You ask your child during a heart-to-heart, you ask them a question, and they say, blah, 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 blah. And you do what's called wait time. Your child has answered you, and you do not respond to their answer. You give an awkward silence, even when it seems like you shouldn't or like it's your turn. Wait a little bit longer. And then what often happens, parents, this is very big, is they will often say something that is really deep and that will really help you to problem solve. Now, the key there is if they say something, to not talk again and wait even longer. Just keep looking at them like this. Or you can, if you say anything, just say, tell me more. Wow, I didn't know that. And be quiet. So it's called wait time. So that wait time with the pendulum, if you want to problem solve so that you're not getting so activated and you need their support in this, really wait way longer than you think you should for responses from your kids. Oftentimes as adults, we expect a response right away. So we might say something like, do you have homework? No. Why did they say no? They didn't even think about it because they think, and then you say, are you sure? So they're not even thinking right then. What you do is you say, do you have homework? No. Oh, wait, I have math. That's right. So I do this a lot. I do this with every client I have, and I probably do it with every session I have. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, self-care. If you don't want the pendulum to swing so far, you got to be taking care of yourself. Your job on earth is not to only take care of everybody else. It's also to take care of yourself. So make sure you're doing your self-care. And finally, if you don't want the pendulum to swing, be proactive. And in terms of the Jumpstart, don't wait until October or November and let them tell you, oh, everything's fine, I got it under control this year. Don't wait until it's too late. do my awesome Jumpstart course, the best thing in the whole world. Just kidding, but it's good and it will help. So anyhow, I'm going to talk about that right now. One of the biggest solutions is I call it Frankenstudy. One size does not fit all. I'm not giving kids solutions where I say, do this exactly the way I tell you and everything will be fine. I get them to get their own systems tailored to them. They're not standard conventional or traditional thinkers. They don't need those kinds of recommendations. For example, a traditional one would be using the school planner. A traditional one would also be using 3-ring binders. So those are some big mistakes. So I'll tell you briefly about the program. I think you saw it, but basically you'll be coming on, if you sign up for the Jumpstart, you'll be coming on a webinar, which is very similar to this. Every Saturday morning, I'll be starting with a webinar. And I will be meeting with you. It doesn't matter where in the country you live. And they will be recorded. And I'll be speaking with you and your child. And if your child wants space, you can be in the other room, or you guys can do it together. And I'm going to teach you exactly how I set the systems up. I will teach you the mindsets that they need. I will teach you the routines that they need. I am not, as you know, promising miracles. It's not a magic bullet. This is going to require work and time. But I designed this to be a month long on purpose. I don't want to just do some overhaul one-day thing with you. I want to get the pieces in place, refine, refine, refine. So that way, by the end of September, when you're entering October, you guys will know how to do the systems, why to do the systems. You will know them exactly. You can problem solve with me for 4 weeks. I will come on a couple weeks later to help you refine after things begin to crumble in October. Don't worry, because they won't crumble as bad as they used to. Okay, so we're looking for progress, not perfection. So once they do get a little bit sticky, then I'm going to come on. You have another webinar for me for free. Plus I have 2 bonus webinars for you. But basically, you're going to come on. I'm going to teach you. You can ask questions. I can bring people online like you'll see me do with Adrienne in a minute. And it's really easy. So if you're afraid of the technology, it's very easy. It's just as easy as what you just did to get on this webinar. So let's go ahead and meet up with Adrienne now. How do I get you visible? There we go. Hi.
Okay. Hey.
Can we see both of us?
No, what it does is it'll toggle back and forth between who's speaking.
Okay. So, Adrienne, where do we start? You used me for a springtime program, right? And that was a program that I created for after the dip, and it was kind of I think I called it a Hail Mary program. It was like 6 weeks before the end of the school year, and that's when parents are going, oh my gosh, if we don't figure this out, my kid's going to be in summer school, or they're going to be repeating classes in the fall. Everything's falling apart. Hail Mary, how do we get like F's to D's or C's, C's to B's or A's, or whatever it is? So how is that for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was a huge lifesaver. I'm a math tutor, and so you would think like I should know how to help my own kiddo, but we've been struggling with this ever since he got into middle school, and so it's been this constant battle. And in reflecting back, I'm pretty sure it was happening in elementary school, but because he's such a nice kid, he totally flew under the radar. No one really knew that this was an issue for him, including me. It just didn't really make sense, and so after 2 frustrating years, coming up on the end of that 7th grade year, I was thinking, obviously what I know how to do doesn't work for this kid. And so I was desperate, and I had found you, and you sent that email out, and I immediately responded. I was like, yes, I need a Hail Mary because this kid is weeks away from summer school. I just did not want to go through that with him. I knew it would make everyone's summer awful. And so we met just like this, and I was so surprised. I took pages and pages of notes and immediately went to work putting them in place. And amazingly, he did not have to do summer school. It totally worked. And this is my most favorite, most hilarious part. The last day of school, he comes home and he pulls some papers out of his pocket. One of them's crumpled up, and I open it up, and it's this cheesy award from his teacher that said most improved.
Awesome.
And I knew it was because of the work we had done, and he was a little embarrassed by that, but totally grateful and relieved that he didn't have to do summer school because he should have done it in 6th grade, but they didn't require it because his grades, as far as state testing, were on grade level, if not above. And so they couldn't, by law, hold him there. But 7th grade was another story, and he did not want to go. So you were a huge help. And that dip that you described, I showed that to my son, and he put the video down. He was watching it on his phone, and he said, "That's totally exactly what happens to me." And so I'm grateful that you described it in a way that he identified immediately. I don't want to keep doing that anymore.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, can I switch users pretty easily?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Oh, there we go. Cool. Awesome. So one of the things that I really love about what I do, even when I'm making videos, a lot of the videos that I make are for students. I'm speaking to the students. So in this case, he got to see me in action. And did he see me on the webinar as well?
He did, yeah.
And how did he respond? Because I know when I'm speaking on these things, I'm speaking to kids. So parents, there will be times when I'm speaking to you, but generally I'm speaking to the kids. I do have, sorry, let me switch back. I do have sort of this sassy, no nonsense, no PS attitude. And I really want to connect with the kids. I am not boring them. I want to make that really clear, but can you attest to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job. So I just barely bought the back to school Jumpstart program the other day. And I immediately I saw the receipts. I clicked on the stuff. I walked over to my son and I said, "Here, Seth says, watch this." So he sat down, he starts watching it. And then I asked him some questions. I hadn't even watched it myself yet, but he said, "Okay, sounds like that's doable. Like, I'm excited to try this out." And so the reason I bought it though was because we had this great conversation at the end of the summer and he told me what I needed to do this next school year, but I was feeling a little shaky on my own accountability towards that. And so I'm excited that you have this program so that I too have some accountability to make sure we're doing what you say. Because just like you described the pendulum, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be fighting so hard to keep it going. And I worry that I'm going to swing over here and say, "Forget it. You're a lost cause. I don't know what to do anymore." And I know that's the wrong thing to do. I don't want to do that to him this year. And so I'm super excited about the program, and it really is easy to work with you.
Good. I'm glad you feel that way. I really try to break things down into very, very, very manageable bite-sized pieces and spoon feed people. And then part of what I'm doing is each day I'm sending out a little challenge or experiment of the day so that every day there's something. You don't have to do them, but I'm giving really quick little wins. And the whole point is it's 22 days in all, but it's 4 actual Saturdays, but is to give this, not to make anything perfect, to get everything in a really good place. And then you may very well still, the pendulum will swing. And the point isn't for it to not swing at all, but it's not to swing as far. And if that happens, that's a huge success. And that's less stress for you and more success for your kid and hopefully more free time for your kid.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, he definitely values that free time.
Cool. So you said that on the bottom that he watched the video on the bottom. One thing that I did on the sales page, people, is I put a video on the bottom for your child where I'm speaking to them and I'm saying, "Hey, if you want this, fine. If you don't, fine." And I tell them what it is. So if you are afraid of spending the money on this, you should be. You should be skeptical because there's a lot of things out there that don't work. And but I'm pretty convinced that what I do is very good. This is what I do day in and day out. This is my passion. And but there is a money back guarantee, first of all. Second of all, have your child watch it. And if they say, "No, I don't want to do this," then you know you do not spend the money on this program. So I really am trying to make this very easy for you so that you can get, the help that you need. So Adrienne, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do? I want to put a plug in for Adrienne because she's a very interesting, awesome online math tutor for people.
Thanks, Seth. So yeah, I'm an online math tutor. I used to do it solely in person, but like Seth, I found that I was limited to the hours that I could work and there was more demand than what I could keep up with. So I moved everything online and I too was skeptical like can I have the same results because we do a lot of hands-on math. We use math manipulatives across all grade levels. I use them with algebra students, but I discovered it's no different. It's exactly what my kids need. And for some of my students that struggle with attention, online tutoring's better because I'm right in their ears and they can drown out the distractions, from their family. And so I work just like this. It's real similar to this. And my students and I will work on homework and plugging in that missing knowledge that they may have not ever grasped. And we get right back to building that strong foundation so that my ultimate goal is they don't need to keep coming to tutoring anymore. I want them to be able to do math on their own. And so I hyper focus in on middle school because that's where the magic happens. And typically, my students who work with me in middle school don't need me in high school. They've got it. They've got it down. They understand the core concepts, and algebra doesn't seem like a foreign language anymore to them. So it's super fun. And I invite any parent that wants to try it out for free. They totally can. Come over to mathformiddles.com and head to my Work With Me page, and there's an option there for free to try this. It's super fun. Parents that have been skeptical in the past, I think it's because they didn't grow up with the technology, but the kids, this is no big deal. This is no big deal. And I think their favorite perk is some of them work in their pajamas. They're way comfortable.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you so much. I noticed I noticed a pattern with my middle school math kids. The ones that I get are a lot of times mine are the ones who don't want to show their work. So in elementary school, they were able to do everything in their head, and suddenly they get to middle school and they miss a detail, especially right brain kids, like what I work with. And then it falls apart. And that you're right, that is a time to save them. That is a time you can make a big difference with them by teaching them the right strategies with math. That will change it for high school. And I do the same thing too, where my goal is to not work with you. My goal is for you to have the executive function so that you don't need me anymore. And I think that that's how everybody should be. Therapists, doctors, we should all be working so that my success is that you fire me.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
that your kid is in such good shape that you're like, oh, we
We're
don't
good.
need it anymore. But I don't know about you. I still get a lot of kids who, like, I was talking to an old client today, and Andrew, and he's the one who I put a testimonial from him on the sales page, but he's going to Scotland next week for college, and
Cool.
we were talking, and he's like, I couldn't have done it without you. But we're still I'm still in touch with 80% of the kids that I worked with.
Absolutely.
Because,
I'm the same way. And it doesn't matter that I work online with them. I have kids messaging me and saying, "Hey, my family's coming to Idaho. Can we meet you in
yeah,
person?" It's super fun. And I go to lunch with them. I still talk to the kids that went to college. I mean, we're good friends. I totally agree. You end up being part of their lives.
it's all about relationships and really caring. And when, like my dentist, even, I know he cares about me. Like, so I've had him for 15 years, and but we kids need to be cared about. They see through that in a second. So do you have any last comments about why you would recommend this to a parent, or the right parent, the type of parent that would benefit from this, or anything like that?
Sure. I think a lot of parents probably could relate to this. I know just enough about child development to realize, yeah, there's a chance that my kid might grow out of this pattern. There's might be some chance. But really, when I'm being honest with myself and I look backwards at his life, no, this has always been a struggle. And so I guess just finally accepting that that's the way it is, that this is his struggle in life right now at this stage. Um, it made it easier to say yes to getting him the right kind of help. I just thought maybe we could, figure it out on our own. And after 2 years of trying to do that, it's too much contention, and I love him too much for him to feel like he needs to run the other way. And so I think a lot of parents could relate to that. doing that stuff at the end of the year helped draw us closer, and he was really relieved that it worked. And so it's definitely worth the investment. And honestly, I think about if they were to enroll with tutoring with you in person, this is a much more affordable option. I know that I've looked at other coaches that are charging thousands of dollars for programs like this, and they didn't work for some of my friends that have gone through them. And so I can see the skeptical side of it, but so I love that this is A, affordable, and B, super convenient. I don't have to go anywhere. And that's a huge win for me. I play the mommy bus more than I care to. So anytime I do not have to drive a kid to an appointment, I'm super excited about that. More time at home, more downtime for him and for me, and the whole self-care part. I'm really excited. Now, Seth, I had a question for you though.
Sure.
You mentioned about the wait time, and I will admit my husband, that's his strength is the wait time thing. I'm not so good at that. But also I've noticed on my kids' side, they love to A, argue with me, and B, interrupt what I'm trying to say or finish my sentences, and they have no clue what I'm going to say. And so it ends up becoming this frustrating conversation. And so what would you recommend for a kid that's interrupting you before you can have a full thought? And you're not even trying to lecture them, you're just trying to say something.
Okay. Well, first of all, audience, if you have questions, put it in the chat now. Like, that's a great question. So feel free to do that. This is for you. I am here now. Ask me a question. So as far as the wait time when they interrupt you and all this stuff, so what's happening is, again, coming back to the word patterns. You guys have created these behavior patterns over years. You've probably learned a lot of your patterns from their parents. They've learned their from your parents. They've learned their patterns from their parents and the people around them. But so the pattern is thick. It's in there. So it doesn't change easily. So I'm not going to say that it changes easily at all. Everything that you do that's worthwhile with your kids takes time and energy, and it's hard. And when I was a teacher for 12 years, and I would do this. First of all, I found out that there were 3 main types of wait time that I did. And because what I would do is I would count in my head how long it took for a response when I waited. There are 3 main types of kids. Most kids, after 3 seconds, will start talking again. Some kids, it takes 10 seconds. It's on the second. It's crazy. Right on 10 seconds, right on 3, right on 10. And then sometimes I have an anomaly with some super highly introverted kids that it takes 30 seconds to a minute for them to start talking. And that's an awkward wait time when I'm looking at a kid going,
Yeah.
but I'm conveying to them in that wait time that, look, you are, in fact, emotionally safe to share what you want to share with me and to take the amount of time it will require for you to process the words to get them from the brain and out of the mouth. A lot of this with a lot of kids is a processing issue. You say something, they respond, and that's automatic. That is reacting. That is not responding. Okay. They say something automatic. They just have a reaction. You say one thing, it triggers, they say this thing. Now, then you want what's called a pattern interrupt. You want to interrupt the pattern, and there are many ways to do that. But one way you can do it, I mean, I'm just pulling this out of my head, but one way to do a pattern interrupt is to co-regulate, like I said before, just go like this. I'm going to ask you this question, and I want a real answer. Blah, blah, blah. And then wait. And then they give you a reaction. The first thing is going to be a reaction. It's going to be thoughtless. Don't respond when they say that. Just keep looking at them. If you do respond, just say, I'm going to let you take time to keep talking. Go ahead. But I want them to know that I'm really listening. They're emotionally safe to say whatever. You're not in trouble. I want to hear it. Keep going. There was about 3 seconds. That felt pretty long. I'll do a 10-second one. Now, they might say things in the middle, or they might say, what? I'm done. Just say, I'm still listening. So sometimes that'll happen. Or why are you looking at me like that? I'm still listening. But the processing, it requires for them to pause, take a breath, slow down their own amygdala, get back into their prefrontal cortex, get back into the thinking brain, and to be able to respond and say something that actually has meat to it. It sometimes takes a moment to, and this is executive function too, is transitioning. So to transition, shift gears into a mode of thinking that is relevant to what you're trying to do. So you do have, Adrienne, a long journey ahead of you, but sometimes with these things, there's a quick change. Like you do this 5, 10, 15 times, and that seems like a lot. Okay. But you're going to have a time where something sticks. And then that's when you want to compliment them and you say, thank you. That was a sincere answer, and I respect that. And that's a throwaway comment, like I mentioned before, and then go on with your conversation, and then you're ready to respond and hopefully engage in a higher quality, and again, not perfect, but a higher quality conversation than before. Every win is a win. So getting a little bit of a better response is a win, and it does count, and it will, if you keep doing it, however many times, 5, 10, 15, there's no formula, but it will start to turn. And what you're wanting to do is you're going in this direction. You want to eventually get it to go the other way. Even if it's only that much, you've got it. Because then getting real conversations, you're going to have a better relationship with the child as they're growing into adulthood. So does that help? Did you have any follow-up questions with that?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I'm going to have to work really hard on that. The other question I had for you is, let's say I go through this program and we get into, well, I'm going to say November, and we're trying to do the best we can. But if we run into problems, is there like a way we can schedule a quick one-off with you and have you just talk to my kid and leave me out of it, be the neutral, you be the neutral party?
Or you can record it and you can watch it later. But yeah, so I'm mostly full for this fall, and then doing this program is full too. I'm thinking about doing a dip program midway through. So people who want to come back for the dip, and that's when I'm going to get everybody. That's when people are going to be like, oh, like
That's me.
not the people who are in this program, but the people who didn't at all. I always get the most business mid-semester when parents are going, oh shit, we're here again. We need help. If we don't get this, my kid's going to fail these classes. Right. So the red flags have gone off. They're frustrated. But I may do an online dip program like this one for the rest of the semester. Also, you can hire me online for hourly. I do hourly. And I generally charge $150 an hour. If you have legitimate financial issues, let me know. But speaking of which, through this webinar, if you want, I have a special discount. So my program is $597, $600. That's what about 4 hours worth of my time normally is with coaching. And I'm all in all with the bonus webinars, which are awesome. You'll have about 14 or 15 hours, but with me, you'll have about 12 hours just with me, where I'm going to be teaching everything. So the $597 is worth it. And then if they do it by, I think a certain date, it's $497. By this Wednesday, it's $397. But if you're on this webinar, email me at seth@sethperler.com. I'll give you another $100 off, which is $297. That goes until this Wednesday at midnight. So today's Tuesday. By tomorrow at midnight, if you email me and say, Seth, send me the link, I have a special link that's $297. That's 2 hours, what is normally 2 hours of my time, and it's like 12 hours, yada yada. And so anyhow, they can hire me for hour. I hope I answered your question. They can hire me for hourly, and they can hire me if I do the dip program.
Okay, no, that's perfect.
I will say this: I love working with kids online. Working with kids online only works when there's buy-in. If they're resistant, I'm in person, I can work with buy-in really easily. But if they're online and there's no buy-in, it doesn't work. But if they're like, yeah, this guy seems okay, let's try it, then online works really well. And I will say this too: if you're going to hire me online, have all their stuff together. Have their backpack, all their folders, the planner, everything with them. Don't start a session with me without that stuff, because I'm going to be going through that stuff with them. I want it there. I don't want them having to run down the stairs to get it or say it's at school. So if you want some valuable time, like really compress it, and we get down to business. So that's a good question.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me at Seth. Whoops. Let me plot me back on Seth@SethPerler.com. And I don't see any questions in the chat. I really hope you guys join. I think this will be awesome for you. So have a great day. Bye.